Good evening. This episode is in part brought to you by insomnia. I really want a cup of coffee right now, but I probably shouldn't do that given that it's 2 a.m. in the morning right now. So I went to bed 3 hours ago, but since then I was toiling in bed, playing with ideas because my brain didn't like me. So I talked about this idea of recording my journey of becoming a fiction writer, and I think that's like a path that I'm currently on right now. There's nothing quite like fiction writing that really gets me off. There's nothing quite exhilarating as fiction writing, and that's partly why I think I've devoted myself to the craft. So in the future, expect more of these like accidental episodes or random episodes to pop up. I really love doing these episodes because they're just so spontaneous. They're so easy to make, and I think it's much better for me to share the journey. So, with the authenticity argument prefaced, here is where I am at with the editing of L'Académie. So, for the past few weeks, I've been researching editors for my novel. You know, as a part of the self-publishing process, you gotta find a good editor that you can trust. You gotta find people that really believe in a project, and you gotta work with those people. And I found this company that edited the first 2,000 words of your manuscript for free, and here is their editorial feedback. One of the strongest aspects of your writing is the amazing images you create, like the sunlight slicing through the shutters on page 5, or the entire scene on the same page where you pan out of Eddington's room to the streets below. Now, don't get too excited. I'm not going to read you the chapter of the novel. Wait for the actual publication of the novel so you can really soak the imagery's in. I received this letter about like 5 minutes ago, and I think that's one of the reasons why I just had to get up and I just had to shoot this video. Now, that commentary on the imagery of things, or on my specific focus on imagery within my writing, is going to lead into today's topic, which is the topic of being a flâneur. I've sort of alluded to this topic before, but I think, since right now we are in the post-apocalyptic COVID world, no one is flaneuring around much. No one's walking the streets much. But if you think about it, if you really take a good Jesus Christ, if you really consider the lifestyle of writers alike, Henry Miller, Marcel Proust, Gustave Flaubert, these people were flaneurs. They were wandering around the city, they were gathering inspiration, and I think there's something in that. There's something in like walking around. There's something in like just being lost in a city, being lost in an urban setting that's just inherently fascinating and inherently motivating. There's a sense that artists are trying to recreate human experiences, and I think flaneuring around or wandering around, being a wanderer, there's a part of that that really sharpens the gaze of an artist, that really sharpens a part of yourself that you don't usually get to develop when you're lost in your daily routines. I mean, I'll wake up tomorrow morning and I'll make coffee, but there's never an opportunity for me to zoom out and to look at my life from the outside in instead of the inside out. But if you throw yourself into an urban setting, if you throw yourself into the streets, let's just assume that COVID no longer exists. If you can just throw yourself back into the streets, there's a sense of like detachment from your own life. You're watching things. You're watching everything flowing past you. In that environment, you're almost like forced to observe yourself from a third person. You're almost forced to sharpen your skill for observation. And I think that's an excellent exercise. If you really want to derive like the truest of imageries of the city, of a scene that you're trying to write in your novel, I think wandering around places, it's one of the best things ever. And also explore quirky little corners. They are usually some of the best places for you to find inspiration from. I remember that when I was working on L'Académie and I was sort of stuck in a writer's block, and I just remembered that I went to a bookstore, and I think I went to Dimmicks on Collins Street, and I bought a copy of Henry Miller. And with that copy of Henry Miller, I just walked along the bank of Yarra River under Queen's Bridge, and it was just, language cannot even describe how I felt. I read a bit of Henry Miller, I crossed the bridge to the other side, and I sat down on a bench, and there was just like this, I don't know, spiritual feeling. It was like a true connection with the surrounding. And right then and there, I've realized that that's what I'm trying to capture with my writing. Okay, I'm breaking all the rules here because, this is actually a scene out of my third novel, which I really want to read to you guys. I kept walking along the benches that overlooked Flinders Station. The weather was fine and the wind was mild after the rain. I was there. In a brief split of a moment, all that was beautiful aligned. From the water to the people, From the seagulls waiting in front of cafes to the photo-snapping tourists. I wished the afternoon along South Bank would come to a still life. Better yet, a portrait that would never lose its charm. I took out my notebook and wrote down a few lines as I forced myself to get away from the bench. I couldn't afford to be late. So yeah, if you really want to capture like the immediacy of things, if you really want to observe life from a distance, just walk around empty streets, walk around the city if you have the luxury to do so. If you're living in Paris, if you live in a bigger city that's not under lockdown, well, take all the chances that you can get. Sit at coffee shops, watch people, and sharpen your sense of observation. That's what a writer needs. Nowadays, we're so distracted that we no longer pay attention to the outer world. So if you are a writer, I would suggest taking on the exercise of people watching and scenery watching, because frankly, they're a lot of fun to do. And that concludes this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.